30 years ago, the Beijing Platform for Action set a global vision for gender equality, a promise to women everywhere for a better future. Following the commemoration of Women's Day last week, Uganda stands at a pivotal moment to reflect on this promise, this vision, analyzing the challenges and celebrating the progress made. Today on the show, we delve into 30 years of the platform, what it means for Ugandan women, how far we've come, and how far we ought to go. With me today in the studio, I have an illustrious panel to delve into this particular topic. I shall introduce them from my extreme left coming in. On my extreme left, we have Miss Sarah Nakintu. Sarah is the ED Shalom Women's Development Network, as well as the first chairperson of the InterParty Women's Platform and a member of the Alliance for National Transformation. Good afternoon, Sarah, and welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
We are extremely happy to have you here and to have this particular discussion with you.
Honored to be here.
And right next to me is what ought to be a familiar face by now, excuse me, Nancy Caroline Ayot. Nancy is a writer, a feminist, and lawyer. Good afternoon and welcome to the show again, Nancy.
Good to see you again.
It's a weekly thing. At this
It's a
point, we
weekly
just
thing.
we have a bond. Yes. So jumping straight into the topic of discussion today, Nancy, I will start with you. I would like you to break down further what exactly the Beijing Platform for Action is, how it came to be,
Yes, please.
the pertinent issues the pertinent issues set to address. Let's just start from there.
Thank you so much for the question. So before the Beijing platform or the conference of 1995, we had 3 other conferences, international conferences on women, and the very first one was held in Mexico City in 1975. It's the one that gave us the International Year of Women because it was the inaugural conference, the very first one, and it focused on issues like inequality, peace, conflict resolution, but also on development as a whole and women's contribution towards it. And it gave us the Mexico Action Plan. And then we had the one that was held in Denmark in 1980. Yes, let me fact check. Yes, 1980. The one in Denmark was discussing the economic and social and political disparities faced by women, and it also gave us another document. And then for the third, we had the Nairobi conference of 1985, and it also gave us another document. So the Beijing platform was not the very first. It was actually the fourth of many, and it was held in China, in Beijing. That's why it gets the name Beijing, and it had more than 100 countries, 189 to be specific countries, attending and signing on a policy document or a policy agenda to address gender equality as an issue. And it focused on a series of issues, one of which is it identified 12 to be specific that I know of. One of them is poverty, recognizing that women face poverty, that feminization of poverty is a real thing. Women are more likely to be affected by poverty than all other groups of women. It talked about health care, especially reproductive health, maternal health care, and access to these health care services. And then, just like now, we had significant issues of reproductive health that are specific to women and were not being addressed in policy issues. It also came up with violence against women, which is a horrible, terrible thing. And women and conflict, recognizing the problems that women in conflict areas face, especially with them taking responsibility of the family, but also with women's bodies being used against them as tools of war. And then economic empowerment. And you know the basis of women empowerment is the fact that they should have economic independence out of all, and it was one of the focus issues. Also, it addresses some other issues like poverty, access to healthcare. You know how with all rights, how they are so multifaceted and interconnected. Then women in power and decision making. We recognize the reason why these conferences were organized is that we recognize the importance of governance, because governance is a tool of power that enables us to address challenges in society. And so women in decision-making powers were supposed to be a pivotal point into making the right decisions for women in every country, worldwide really. Then institutional mechanisms for advancement of women, strengthening government institutions, and also mechanisms that promote gender equality and women's empowerment regionally, internationally, overall. And in this, we also recognize the fact that in democracies or in stable countries, women are more likely to achieve gender parity, or women's rights are more likely to be respected than in other forms, dictatorships and lawless states. But also the human rights of women, recognizing that women's rights are human rights. Women's rights and human rights, and media, the role of the media in addressing challenges that women face, among others. And I think with this document, we also come to the back of our minds that the argument from the very first conference, International Women's Conference, was that women's rights are human rights, and it was not being recognized in that way. There were systematic oppressions or mechanisms in place that prevented women from achieving these rights, and the effort had to be deliberate in trying to achieve those goals. That's why the people came together and discussed these issues. Were they implemented right away? Hell no, they were not. Did countries jump on the wagon to say that this is the right thing to do? Many thought it would look nice on the face of things, and they probably signed and adopted things. But as we know, implementation is a very difficult thing. But also, now looking at 1995 and today, this week, with a conference in New York going on, and it's another International Women's Conference going on, and many issues are going to be discussed, and with new other things coming up with technology. Okay, not that they're coming up for the first time in 2025, but technology, climate change. But we must understand how the patriarchy that has caused these things has continued to evolve with us. It has continued to evolve with us, that whereas women are winning on one front, we're losing. New battles are coming. Or we move 3 steps forward and go 5 steps backward. And this is specifically difficult for us in 2025 because the biggest issues that we faced, from even last week, we were talking about climate justice and its effect on women. And also we are looking at online facilitated or tech facilitated violence against women, but also we are looking at the shrinking funding towards women's what? Rights. Women's rights and well-being. We're looking at the new narratives that have come up against women's rights. So I believe that 30 years is a time of reckoning, and it's a high time we sit down and talk about these issues and see where we stand, but also see where we are falling behind and why we are falling behind. But not just that, but what we can do about it.
Okay. Yeah. And see, today that is that was a very in-depth into the Beijing platform. I'd like you to take us further down that road. We're talking about Beijing platform, what it means for women in Uganda in particular. Talk to us about the key achievements that have been made in regards to the platform and the Ugandan woman, but then also what are the persisting challenges, because we, as a woman, you can really tell that there is still a great deal.
Oh, thank you so much. So I believe that 1995 was a crucial time for Uganda. It's when our constitution was made. Am I right? And we had all these great provisions. We have a whole thing on rights of women.
33.
Yes, 33 on rights of Article 33 on rights of women, and it is great stuff. We know that. I won't go into the nitty-gritties because we know one of the very first knowledge points you should know is that women are equal to men and they shall not be subjected to any form of discrimination and all that. So at the time when the Beijing conference of 1995 was going on, we had our constitution out. So we were timely in that. And then over the years, I think many policies have been put out. The National Family Plan, the Domestic Violence Act, the Female Genital Mutilation Act. Policy, great stuff, but also deliberate attempts have been taken to make sure that women access education or opportunities as much as men. We have the affirmative action in education, we have the affirmative action in political spaces, where we have a whole 30% of the House, of the August House, dedicated to women. But that is just to mention but a few. And in the years that have come, I believe that the evolution has been seen. We went from women cannot reason as much as men to some women can reason as much as men to maybe women can reason as much as men. And now we are at a point whereby women have been given more advantage as opposed to men.
So that's the narrative.
That's the narrative. That's one of the biggest narratives right now. And I keep telling you that while we have this deliberate action, I feel like the patriarchy is right at the door waiting for us with the right answer to the things that we talk about. And I would like to say that women are not more advantaged than men in terms of opportunities in Uganda, because we see it in the way we access spaces. And people keep saying, I'll give an example of education. People keep saying more women graduate from universities these days than men. And I want to tell you that there are more women than men in Uganda. It's just natural that more women should graduate from university. But also you need to understand how far these narratives go. Just say 30 years ago, with a university degree, you would go really far. You'd have a job ready for you. But now that the more women infiltrate spaces, the less value is attached to them. For example, a university degree doesn't mean so much anymore.
But isn't that more of oversaturation of, the job market as opposed?
It could be.
Of course, that is directly related to women getting into the job market.
Yes, getting into the job market. It's directly related. But you find that as long as women infiltrate a certain space, or women like a certain type of thing, it doesn't have so much value. It's like, say, in secondary school, did you hear about loving novels? They'll be like, that is such a lame thing. Someone liking. What do you mean? People who like to read are the most knowledgeable people. But there were attitudes attributed to women, and therefore they didn't hold the same value. It's almost like in high school choosing to do liberal arts or the arts courses, which directly lead us to governance, human rights, and all these things, and a basic understanding of our society. They do not hold so much value. Why do you think that is? It is because these are things that women directly care about, and women go for. And also, we look at women. What do you call them? Women in tech and women in science. Right now, there is a deliberate effort to involve women in science, because all through the years, we have not been able to make the very best innovations that actually help in our reproductive health or help in solving women-related issues. For example, in 2023 is when a research was carried out for the first time on menstrual products using blood.
Oh.
Yes. Now you wonder, what were they using before? Water. So the menstrual products that had been in circulation all this time were tested using water, not blood. How? Does water and blood have the same density? No, and these are the things that only women would think of in the same. But also you need to understand that right now there is specific challenges attributed to women accessing opportunities. I don't remember the exact name of the research, but there was a certain research written by certain women on the perception of men, of men's perception of women in a specific room. They said that if men perceive that when there are 15% of women in a room, men perceive it as if they are 30%. If there are 30% women in that room, men perceive it as equal representation. And if, actually, I think it was 20%, equal representation. And if there are 30% of women in a room, men perceive that as the overwhelming majority. That women are the overwhelming majority. It is perception. It is in their heads. It is in their heads and in everyone's heads that this is what is going on. And we have persisting things, because we know that the most unfair form of discrimination really is that discrimination against women. It is the oldest and the most unfair and the least justifiable type of discrimination. And it has been ingrained in our traditions. It has been ingrained, it has been written down in our books of religion. It has been put down to the least sacrifices. It is why even until today, a senator in Nigeria will accuse her superior of harassing her sexually, and the whole house will agree to dismiss her. It is not the same. She's a senator. She's a senator. She has all the privileges that a woman of her station has. She attained a certain level of education. She's well spoken. She knows her mind. She didn't encourage the the abuse. In fact, she flagged it. But abuse, like violence against women in that respect, is still not a recognized form of oppression in that regard. People will go around gaslighting and giving all the reasons why a woman should not have come out and said things like that, because at the end of the day, discrimination, one, is about the privileges people get out of a certain situation that they would not get if they allowed equality to prevail. Secondly, it's also about hate. I hate to sound controversial. I've overused the word hate, but let's look at it down to the last detail. If a person is not directly benefiting from women's oppression, they have no reason to encourage the oppression unless it's out of pure hate. And it's a genuine thing. And hate perpetuates things that are beyond us. It's why on Sunday we had a headline like a man in a Molata killed his wife for not bathing their children, because femicide is real. Is that a justifiable reason to kill somebody? Oh, is there any reason really to take somebody's life? No, but things continue to permit. South Africa, Kenya, even Uganda in itself, in the last 30 years, we've had femicide spikes that only made it to the news as statistics of women dying. The killings of women in Entebbe, who is the culprit? Who has been convicted? But if we go further to look at the loopholes in governance and implementation of rights of women, we go down to the presidential pardons.
Yeah.
When the president came to power, he pardoned people. He used his prerogative under the constitution to pardon some prisoners, and most of them were rapists.
That was just, I think, last year, I believe.
They were rapists.
11 out of 13.
Yes, and we will continue to talk about
defilers.
Yes, and defilers. Yes, that is true. It's why we continue to talk about the growing rate of teenage pregnancies, and we do not report it in the media as defilement. The growing cases of defilement, because that is not teenage pregnancy, that is defilement. Those were children, and somebody slept with those children. There is very little political will. On the surface, it looks like things are going right, but we know that when we do not place women who are feminist or women who understand the concept of gender equality in positions of power, what we have are tokens. People who can be used to justify numbers that they are placed in positions of power, but they do not do the work that is needed. Just last week, when we thought we would have a project on menstrual equity is making sure that all girls have access to menstrual products and menstrual hygiene and related things. Just last week, when we thought that the government would do that for all schools, they withdrew. There can be a supplementary budget for, the army when the country is not directly under security threat, but there will never be a budget for something like that. And I like to compare this. I know people don't agree with me sometimes, and I keep saying sex is a choice, but menstruation is not a choice. But we do have free condoms in this country in public spaces. How is that compared? How do we compare that? The country prides itself on protection of the family in its national objectives. I will tell you with confidence, and anyone who knows what menstruation is and how it leads directly to the continuity of a nation knows that you need to protect the woman to make sure that the nation continues to live and to thrive. However, nothing in that regard is being invested. And this is just not in Uganda. It's just like in China, when China had a policy on having how many? One child. The point was, it was preferable to have a male child than a female child, and you would rather abort the female. I believe these are direct acts of hate that have been put in policies and all these things. But also, let's look at the state of our roads today, and you're thinking, how does this correlate? Most of our women are subsistence farmers. They stay at home, they garden, they need the roads to access everywhere. They need the roads to send their products to the market. They need to get to the market on those stalls. However, the state of our roads they're so deplorable in Kampala itself that we're embarrassed to show our foreign friends our roads. Because it is until you leave this country and you go to another country, then you realize that this is not working. Like we don't come from good spaces. But also, the health centers, how evenly distributed our health center falls is not the same. They do not have drugs. People are the interns were pulled out. That at some point they were not deployed for like a long time, for almost a year. And these are the people who work directly to make sure that maternal health care works. Now, very sadly though, now with the pulling of aid on HIV and all the scandals around it, I know they're working around to bringing it back. Right now, I know for sure that there are people being called and told that they cannot, that the clinics will not supply them with their HIV drugs, with their retrovirus, and they have nowhere to go. But as if that is not enough, it means that our dream of seeing AIDS end by 2030, how is that plausible? How is that plausible in the long run? Because here we're going to have HIV positive mothers not receiving the antenatal care that they need in order to avoid the mother-child transmission. I know that there is a lot going on with it, but I believe that it gets down to policy and its implementation. And whereas I see a zeal, many people have the zeal to see the country thrive. Many people have the zeal for economic empowerment of people. But let me just tell you that in capitalist patriarchy, where we are working and thriving for profit to see who will get richer, the only thing we're aiming to achieve is that the rich will get richer and the poor will get poorer. And that means that women who barely have access to resources will be the poorest. Their health will suffer, and in the long run, the human race will suffer.
Thank you so much, Nancy. I think you have very, 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 very articulately expounded on our achievements and our persistent challenges. I thank you for that.
I hope so.
Sarah, as we transition, I would like you to bring you into the discussion. Nancy mentioned a very important point in regards to political will. She didn't go much in depth into that, but I wanted to talk to you about that. When the Beijing Platform for Action came into play, 1995, when they set aside their vision, one of the things that was paramount to it was actually the political will of governments to see through that women actually achieve a certain level of gender parity. Like there's a certain level of gender parity that comes into play. The Ugandan government started off with great in this regard. We had constitutional developments, we had legal developments in this regard. The intention was clear. And to a certain extent, the execution was clear, where the affirmative action came in. And over the years, multiple things have come into play. I would like to talk to you about, is there still political will in regards to the implementation of the Beijing Platform's goals in Uganda? And someone actually interestingly talks about how women's rights have become they were more implemented just because of the how should I put this, the attention they drew. Right now the world is shifting. Climate change, artificial intelligence, people are shifting their areas of interest, and with it seems governments are also shifting their areas of interest, whether it be funding, whether it be the actual attention that is given to it. In Uganda, is the political will really there? What would political will look like? What has it looked like in the past? And then, if it's not there, is there a possibility of reigniting it or igniting it if it has never been there?
Okay, thank you so much. As you earlier said, initially, Uganda was on the right
Track.
path. But when time went on, right away from Parliament, they lost track. Yes, first of all, when you look at the affirmative action, where we have 30% women in Parliament, and if you see an increase in the position of the ministerial positions currently, you have a lot of women there.
Yeah, our top leaders from
Yes,
the vice
our top
president.
leaders are women. But what matters is, do they have
A voice.
the voice? Can they make decisions themselves? Or it is a trick of an eye when the president says, hey, this must happen. That's what they implement. So it doesn't make sense to give me a position and I don't have power to implement. Secondly, you see, like, even we have a lot of women politicians currently, but are they key in fronting the women issues currently in Parliament? No. We have high taxes on sanitary pads now at the time. Even diapers. Not every girl child can afford to have a sanitary pad currently. And lack of sanitary pads has led to a lot of women, a lot of girls going out of school currently. So if the government withdraws, as she said sanitary pads to all schools actually, then are you fronting the girl child or women issues currently? Lost track currently. We see a number of deaths, maternal deaths currently in the country. Right away from the roads being poor to lack of medications and the negligence of the health practitioners, and name it. This is bringing down the level of women who would be alive in the country. We have children who are being damaged right away in hospitals. I have a child who is a special needs child, and it was due to a lack of a phototherapy machine in my district. And the child now has a special needs because of lack of that. If it was there, the child wouldn't have been at that level. I'm struggling with him, but that's all from the government failure to equip our hospital. It is now called an hospital now. It was a health center for. It is currently a hospital without
A phototherapy
machine, without a good nursery section for children. Women still sleep down while giving birth. Lack of beds and less doctors around. How can a woman lose life because of her 300,000 shillings? This poverty is being inflicted to women by the government because there are no policies. We are seeing PDM. We see money for grow. Money is there, but who takes the money? The needy does not receive the money. Only those who have received the money.
The rich get richer, the poor get
And
poorer.
the poor get poorer. When you see taxes all the time, you see like KCCA chasing women vendors day in, day out, confiscating items. An item which is taken will never be brought back. But this has been capital for this woman. The woman who is there in the hardship of climate change, as we see currently. It is shining too much. When the rains begin, they will be devastating. And this woman hustles to the last bit. And items are confiscated and taken. And there is no clear plan for a well-established area for this woman to carry out marketing. I was recently in Burundi. Their market is far better than our markets here. One, in Burundi, a woman can afford to pay for a stall in the market because the capital is higher than the rent. But here in Uganda, rent is higher than the capital that the woman has. We still lack policies. If I am a woman working in the market and I give birth, I have to go with my child. But where are these nursery sections or their daycare centers around the market areas? So this still hinders like the woman to prevail in the country like Uganda. So like when you look at also as regards politics, when you look at internally in our political parties, if you say that women like decision making should be a priority at all levels, you find in our various political parties, except ANT, ANT says 40%, 50% and above. So it is upon the women to come up and take on this political seats or like decision making at all levels. But in other political parties, even if they say 30%, you never find women are equivalent to 30%. Then also like giving back to the women leagues is also an issue in our political parties. They can get money, for example, those that are in IWOP, but they'll never give money to the women leagues to implement activities or like even entice other women to come up to achieve all this. When you look at policies, we have gender policies in various political parties, but you find some political parties refuse to sign policies against sexual harassment. Yes, what does that show? That even internally in political parties, women are harassed. And this has brought about like women backing off from participating in politics. Then the other thing, the violence against women is still prevailing. Look at the Kawempe by-election that is happening. A police officer hits a woman as if he's hitting a fellow man. This will deter many, many capable women to come up, to engage in such activities. So if the violence is still there, when she talked about the freezing of funding, you said women suffer double. Double tragedy for women. Art clinics have been there. Baylor has been like supporting a lot of women to get funds, like even salary. But currently, we have seen families that are breaking off because the woman is no longer earning money. The man says, you have no place in my home if you are no longer at work. That is one. Two, people have been getting medication, ARVs, for 6 months. Currently, when you go to receive ARVs, they give you 3 months. And after 3 months, people now are sharing drugs. And initially it was, they should not share. But currently they are doing what? They are sharing. So what is the fate of our brothers and sisters who are HIV positive in a country like Uganda today? I've not heard from Parliament. I've not heard from the President. There is no plan at the moment. So everyone is questioning, is the government for people or for themselves? Currently, in my organization, I've been supporting women, giving them a small startup capital, like 300, 500. We empower you, we equip you, knowing that these women could get free drugs. So if USAID does not revisit its position, drugs for 1 month would cost 500,000 Ugandan shillings. How would the poor family afford this? So this is my plea to the government through the Uganda AIDS Commission. Can we do something like what the president did during COVID? Ugandans can really give out. Can there be a call to Ugandans to contribute?
Or can we restructure?
Even restructuring. But how can they restructure when they are spending money on tear gas, give away for ministries, giving out cars? Of recently, last year, they gave out cars to all secretary generals in the country, worth 400, like 200 millions each. And currently, if we don't have drugs, with increased corruption in the country, where the president can just walk to curb corruption, other than confiscating items of the culprits, how can they re-strategize currently? And they are saying the country has no money, but money is going to be dashed during campaigns, east, right, and center, as you see in Kawempe currently. So I'm calling up to the parliament to rethink on our sisters and brothers, because you have sisters, brothers who are sick and cannot afford. So if drugs are at 500,000,
Who will afford?
who will afford to buy? So we are going to see more of reinfections currently, other than
And resistance.
resistance. Yes. Then also when you look at our education, one of the key areas in the Beijing was education. They brought universal primary education, universal secondary education. But currently, we saw parliament. This, like, the new curriculum has been there for 4 complete years till they start primary 7. Then parliament tells us they even didn't know how they were grading.
And they summon the minister after that.
So you summon the minister
And we had
after
to learn.
exams being released. What were they doing for all these 4 consecutive
How did
years?
it pass? How did you even pass in the first place?
The policy was passed by them. But then they didn't take charge to know what was conspiring in these schools. What did I do to know what was conspiring? I have relatives. So I got one of my relatives' child and placed them into these schools, the secondary school. So I knew I would go to that school with that mandate, because this child is in this what?
School.
In this school. So when they called parents, come and check on their children's progress, I went there and checked. So I sat with the teachers. Now what is this new curriculum? They say it acts like this, then you must do coursework, then you must go for field work, then if you get 80 and this, you're graded like this. So it was a process.
Did you find that the teachers understood themselves? Were they trained to appreciate the new
Not all teachers understood the curriculum, first of all. And what the government did, it was only educating 2
per school?
per school. Yes.
You know, it's very interesting. I studied in a school with 5,000 students.
So if you're educating this curriculum to only 2 teachers in the school, then the director of studies could go and another teacher. So coming back, they could not even train fellow teachers what they received there. So it could be if they had taken more, or like regional, if they could do it regionally. Even teachers could contribute if the government had no money.
Or the schools.
Yes, all the schools could contribute to take their teachers to understand better the curriculum. So the teacher is learning the curriculum
and teaching the other teachers.
teaching then the learners. Then the learners also had issues, because this child I'm telling you I took to this school was the one doing coursework for all the other members in the group, and she was always busy and I could give her support. But then I went to the school and I said, but do you know this coursework you're giving out, it's only a few pupils who are doing it, and others are just getting marks from this individual. What criteria are you taking to see that every child or student participates? So if all members of parliament were interested in learning about the curriculum, they would have supported even the teachers better, depending from whatever district they are coming from. So these are also loopholes. So are we moving forward? We can move 1 step backward and 6. Like 1 step forward and 6 backwards. This is where we are in Uganda currently. So another thing, like when you look at, they say they put out institutions to support women. We have the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development. Current, but people who are there, the minister, the PAs, name them. Are they acquainted with issues of women? Or you just appoint anyone? Because in Uganda, jobs are not given on merit. Technical know-how, bribery, name it. So like, you see women, even issues are not catered for, things are lacking behind, because people who are interested with this type of work are not knowledgeable about women issues. We always called women parliamentarians. Last week we were with ONET, and women parliamentarians came And they were telling us, you know, some women member of parliament are not well versed with women issues. But our question was, now you who is there and you are well versed, what are you doing to support this other one? You know, the wave gave us various women. Also corruption gives us another set of women, because once you have money, you can win elections. You bribe, you give people salt, soap and everything, and you come to parliament without even knowing your role, what you're doing, how do I push the women agenda, how do I do this? So the cream is not yet there in parliament to lift the women issues currently. Yeah.
Sarah, can I say something real quick? You were talking about the Ministry of Labor and of Gender, Labor and Social Development, and I just realized that even at the height of women's rights advocacy, with younger women coming in, knowing their rights and all these things, number one, we have something called the rivalryism syndrome. And I'm telling you now is that somebody can come here, like a woman can stand firm on her 2 feet and say, me, I am not a feminist. Me, I don't support those things of feminism. Now, it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing not to believe it. But then you're just directly telling us that you do not believe that you should be equal. And you're telling us because you've never experienced the work that people from back then, from all those conferences put in order to give you the rights that you have, the right to say that you don't believe in rights to begin with. But also, let's look at particularly the way the labor exploitation and the unemployment has affected women. Because now we're going back into pre-World War II, where sexual slavery was a thing. And not only do we have girls going out into the Middle East to work as house girls and maybe sex slaves, but we also have girls who went to school who are now becoming internet prostitutes. They fly out, they get some money, but because that is their line of work now, and it's and the thing is, you cannot blame them. They have nothing to do. They're trying to survive. They're trying. This is not me casting judgment, but it's because it's a situation that we've put our people in, and then they'll be like, but she was a slave queen. No, dear. The person made a conscious choice to survive, and these are not things that we can ignore. But also the deliberate efforts of people in governance to undermine women's rights by tagging some of the way they undermined as decency and family values. Because that's where we started from. And the Constitution is clear that all customs and practices that are in contravention with the Constitution, i.e. they undermine the right of a person to exist, the right to freedom, to their basic freedoms, those ones are null and void according to the situation. But I will tell you what, there are policies right now in our laws, in our statutes, that are outrightly discriminatory.
Such as
one, if you're coming out on the open seat to campaign, it says, the clause says, he must. There is no he or she. So now that one applies that the women should
go
stick
for
to
the
the
women's
affirmative action and leave the open seats. That is why when we go down into the grassroots, or like
the assumption is you're coming for a man's seat.
Women start saying, but aren't you greedy? Aren't you rigid? Why don't you go for the affirmative action? This seat is for men.
For example, we've been trying, over the years that we've been trying to bring the marriage divorce bill, you know, they go back, they rename it when they throw it out, and then they repurpose it, those bills.
Yeah, then
but
they
the
take
things,
out a few clauses.
They take out a few clauses, then they bring them back. Now we have the sexual harassment bill, was it that? Was it sexual offences bill?
Yes, sexual offences rather.
Yes, thank you. And right now, it is outrightly against our bodily autonomy of women, because we're talking about indecent dressing. What do you mean?
How do you quantify that?
How do you quantify that? Or videos that are against public decency, things like I say words tagged like that, I cannot.
Very ambiguous.
They're very ambiguous, and these are things that they round up people from. It reminds me of the time of our miniskirt bill and how the violence against women escalated, and yet comparatively.
Pornography bill.
And what like if I dress my miniskirt, What gives you audacity that you must come and rape me? Why don't you control your urge as a man?
But also the fact that we see that the light is focused on a victim, not the perpetrator's actions. Am I right?
Yes.
Now, there are other clauses, say in our Penal Code Act, that definitely protect women but are abused every single day. Do you know the clauses on indecent assault?
Not in the entirety. Educate me further.
Well, I don't remember the exact section, but I know that any person who whistles, catcalls, makes suggestive comments to a person commits a crime. And indeed, they should be liable for sexual harassment in that regard. And it is not up to the person to educate us on his intention. It is how the victim perceives it. So this catcalling, that you walk out the street and someone, my size, it's a crime. Who has been arrested? Me name one person.
You know, it will be very ironic that you'll find the people who are supposed to be conducting the arrests
Yes.
being...
But also the language of our legislators, am I right? When they're debating, I remember when they were debating the anti-homosexuality bill, and legislators with their full chests went onto the floor of the August House of the Republic of this nation and said, see our women, the way they are juicy, the way like made those comments. Are you kidding me? That is objectification of our legislators, women legislators. They went on the floor, the whole world was watching us, and I bet everyone was like, yo, what's going on? What's going on in this? Because they did. Our parliamentarians, who has ever lost a seat for conforming to domestic violence? We had a legislator one time who was quoted on the news and said, women need to be slapped a bit. They need to be, they need to be put in their place. He was on the news. He never lost his seat. No one petitioned against him. No one. It made headlines for a little while because women in the civic space argued and they were like, what's going on? This is bad. This is wrong. But otherwise, after that, it went silent and nothing else happened. But also, let's look at our curriculum in the civil societies that, you know, engage political parties, and the curriculum. They be talking about women's rights and how gender, what do they call the course? They usually say the gender issues, right? Am I right?
Gender responsiveness.
So sometimes they bring it up and you know, they are vague when they're explaining the gender issues. And I'm telling you with my full chest, as a person who affiliated herself with a political party and attended a few political trainings, that it was the biggest disappointment of my life, because we went back into justifying why a woman is as intelligent as a man. In the spaces with our future leaders, with our comrades who are males, and they were like, it's not that deep. And some of them said, when we rescue our country, then we can start looking at gender issues. But it also reminds me of why us people in the women's movement and feminist movements, when we are looking at issues of oppression, we look at them from all angles, because we understand that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And we know that discrimination, once you can justify discriminating against a poor person, that is classism, it means you will readily be able to discriminate against another person because of a disability, because of their gender, because you've categorized people, you've othered people. And I know for sure that people think, a lot of people believe that oppression is only genuine when they're the ones going through it.
Yes.
So when it comes to women's issues, not so much. They're like, but what do you guys want?
We shall get there.
We shall get there. Like you're at home, you get it through us by osmosis, by your affiliation to men.
But then also you've gotten enough. What more do you want?
I hate the idea that we have to sit down and negotiate for our rights.
Yes. And justify it.
And justify
your humanity.
You justify your humanity to another person. I also deserve to go to work. No, I also want to go out at night when I want. I don't have to justify. And I believe, and I think that out there we have to let people know that you don't have to justify these things. That's why I encourage a lot of women to be brazen about the things that they want. The things that they want. You don't say, can I? No, that is a wrong point to negotiate. I would like. I am going to. Now the thing is, you need to sort out yourself while I do my thing. because I am going to access the opportunity. I am going to fight for my rights. I am going to contest for that position. You, who has a problem with it, needs to figure out how to take care of yourself in the meanwhile. Whether it is talking about my unpaid labor at home, in forms of domestic labor, a family takes two to raise. That's why two people come together, because you
Actually, it takes a village.
It takes a village, really. You come together. We need to value community and how to build our societies, because if we leave it in the hands of women, it's too much, and then we oppress them in the same breath. It doesn't work.
And then when you look at the unpaid care work currently, where women are doing a lot, we don't want to pay us, but we want our work to be recognized.
And for the systems to be there.
Yes, for example, like that lady who lost her life because she failed to birth the children. What was the man doing? Can you bring the water closer to me, such that I
Can you actually birth the children?
birth the children? If I'm doing another cure, can't you birth the children? Because they are both our roles. So like, if I'm going to the market to bring, like currently women go for work, and we can come back at the same time, me and you, and you expect me to start cooking while you're watching?
No, to have the meal ready by the time you arrive.
By the time you want. And you're just there reading newspapers and watching TV. If I'm cutting onions, can you come and
Do the dishes.
Yes. Can this work be recognized? Because they can't pay us money worth to the work we are doing. But we need this to be just recognized. Ironing. And you wake up in the morning and iron your shirt.
No, but I think this also links into the question of how we recognize the individuals who perform these works and actually paid for it. Because these people, typically women, are highly underpaid.
Yes.
You will find someone being paid 70,000, 80,000
a month.
Meanwhile, you're not even giving them anything at all. They have to purchase their own soap, they have to purchase their own toothpaste, they have to purchase. You are not adding on to their life except that 70,000 per month, if they are lucky. Like, these are even underage girls you've brought from your villages. Because we have failed to recognize the fact that, these are also human beings, they're also providing services that are pertinent to our existence. This has leaked into the way we're addressing unpaid care work in regards to women. But I think that's the beauty of feminism as we have it. It looks at the intersectionality of all these abuses, these human rights abuses that we have in place. But before we delve straight too deeply into that, Tara, I wanted to ask you a question. We have really spoken here, and one thing that has really come up has been the status of our political leaders, especially our women political leaders, given the fact that it's Women's Day. Women, how did we came from a house that had people like Winnie Byanyima, people like Miriam Matembe, vocal voices, assertive women, strong. How did we get from that to here?
To here. Oh, thank you so much. One is like people get into these positions because of corruption. Currently, we have key top position leaders. We have the Prime Minister, we have the Vice President, we have. But how did they come into positions? It is just like the president is thanking the other family and gives you the position without the merit, without like the desire to support or lift any other person. We have seen women who have been in these positions since Parliament began up to now. They are women representatives.
Yeah, a woman MP for like 4 terms.
4 terms.
That is what, 20 something?
Yes, and they are still there. What does that show us? They are still on the old ideas they had till to date. That is what they are doing. This is why you see they can't even uplift another girl. They are seeing potential here. Currently, they're just there to protect their positions, and yet they are not delivering. That is one. 2, women parliamentarians or even other women leaders with other key positions are not willing to be trained. Yes, we are being trained by UN Women. And we ask them, you're giving us trainings, but we need to see the August House, the women representatives, being trained and being scaled up. They told us once they arrive, they have it all.
Yeah.
So if you cannot be mentored, you cannot be trained, you cannot
Oh dear.
How can you deliver? If you go to the pigeonholes, you will find
They're filled
they're filled
to the brim.
Do you know what that means? They don't read. They just wait to go and sit and say, the highs have it all.
The highest have it all.
So now, that is the quality that we have currently. If we have such people, women issues will never be dealt with. Yes.
Or national issues, really.
Yes, of course, national issues. And then, this idea of the top leaders deciding everything, for example, parliament or the president. You have seen in the judiciary, you have seen everywhere, the court can decide, we are giving you bail. Then someone comes out of prison. Then the order comes, take him
back.
So like, that is demeaning. Women have no say, they have no the right to make decisions. They can't do that. And then lastly, if someone comes out and is just there through corruption, they have not been in this hard life or what, they will never ever fight for the lowest person in the country. Look at when we were hit with COVID. A lot of girls got pregnant. In Mukono alone, we had 5,000 girls who got pregnant during the pandemic.
In Mukono alone?
In Mukono alone. Where are the culprits? Who is holding them accountable? And you hear, last week I had a statement that cases should be dealt with outside court. Judges should make sure that most cases are dealt with outside.
Is that in response to the ADR, the new ADR initiative?
Yes, outside court. So now, what do you intend to have as an end result? The man will come and say, I am giving you 500
to make this go away.
To make this go away.
Actually, to even continue defiling your girl.
And everything. If you are saying about like having a lot of girls in schools, the other year, 2023, the First Lady announced we have 1 million girls who dropped out of school and did not sit primary 7. From that level, what did people do to elevate these girls who dropped out of schools? They are saying we are bringing, how do they term it? Vocational training at your villages. This girl got pregnant. She must look for food for the child because even the would have been responsible father doesn't take care of these children. And how do you expect her to even come for this vocational training, even without a meal? Currently, I have cases of victims from USAID. For example, a mother was saying, I can get money for food with the 300 capital you give them. I can afford to pay the little money they ask in the universal secondary education. And now they have no job. All art clinics have closed. And they were employing women and girls. And we are bringing medicine closer to this very, very person. And who is coming out to say that we are supporting them? Families are breaking. People are going back into their villages currently. The man says, I can no longer afford to pay rent, look for food, and I have no job currently. People are walking out and going back to the villages. What is our country doing? Where is the political will? Where is the love for the nation?
Can I say something real quick? You know the point on democracy, which is one of the pillars of the Beijing platform, is the fact that when a nation is stable, we are able to realize some of these things. We're able to respect human rights. When there's a democracy, there is accountability. But however, we know where our state has been going for the past, 3 to 4 elections. We've slowly been deteriorating, and now we are at a state we are at a state where everything is militarized, from our waters to our roads to our parliaments to our politics, and you know, basically to our night lives, because you be walking to your home and you see a random soldier, you know, because
A random group of soldiers.
yes, you know, they're always in a line carrying big bags, menacing guns and all those things. The police itself has been militarized. There is a mesh between the police
And the military.
And you know, I want us to go back and recall that just 1 year after the Constitution was made, already there was an amendment. That from that time we've been messing with stuff. We've been messing with the future of this country, and indirectly messing with the future of girls and women. And now a new generation is here, and the new generation is just trying to find ways to survive. Should I run a bar? The numbers of young people who are using drugs has increased, and mental health is deteriorating right, left and center. And before you know it, we're going to plunge ourselves back into the 1980s, and I fear that the consequences are even more dire for women. And I would like people to take a personal initiative, of course, to understand that governance directly affects the life that you live down to your home. It's probably why we say the personal is political, because the decision that they make in the house, on parliament, the TV, the afternoon session that you don't want to watch because it's real fun, because it's so boring. Those are the decisions that will make sure that will ensure that you have food on, whether or not you have food on the table, whether or not you get your drugs or not, whether the border will throw you down a trench because the road is horrible, because those are the decisions that directly affect your well-being. Okay. So when there is no political will, and when the people give up on their nation, it's a thing that cannot be rescued. We'll plunge right into the hole.
Okay, thank you.
When you also look at the shrinking spaces of women currently, civic spaces are shrinking. Everyone is being spied. Organizations are being
shut down,
defunded. Yes, funding is no longer there. Accounts are being frozen. So all these are timid to us currently.
Okay, thank you so much, ladies. This discussion has been exponentially illustrative. I believe I know I have learned a great deal from this sharing, and I know the viewers have definitely learned a great deal, so I thank you for that. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the close of yet another Tuesday afternoon. This show has been, as you can tell, exponentially educative. I know that I have learned so much. You know, as a woman, you experience this every day, but to hear another woman say what you're experiencing, it sort of justifies your experience. It sort of humanizes it further. Ladies and gentlemen, women's rights remain human rights. It's extremely pertinent that we recognize the fact that women ought to be recognized and acknowledged in their various capacities, that their rights ought to be given the highest level of recognition, and that we ought to hold those with the ability to do so accountable. So as we go forth today, just remember, women's rights are human rights, and you are not asking for too much by asking for your humanity. My name is Turiho Danita. I have been your host this afternoon. Have a great day.